Good morning and or good afternoon. My name is Dan Sullivan. I'm the RVP for the Eastern region for Conducive Technologies. And we're here to talk to you today about how you can help improve SQL performance up to 2x, or some customers are seeing an even better performance boost with a software-only solution. So pretty exciting and pretty dynamic. But along with me, we've spared no expense and have Mr. Gary Kwan, otherwise known as GQ, who's Conducive Senior Vice President of Technology Strategy, to help with all of the technical discussion and questions that come up during these webinars. So GQ, you out there?
I am, Dan, and glad to join you this morning. Don't let Dan fool you. He's very technical, and I'm just going to help with the deep dive questions as you may have. And Dan, one thing I do want to mention, one thing we like to make these sessions is we like to make them very interactive. And by that, I meant ask us questions. There's a question box in there, and during the session or at the end, go ahead and put any questions you may have. And as Dan would say, no question is a bad question. Thanks, Dan.
No, thanks, GQ. Appreciate it. And he's even taken away my lines, folks. So, but again, we're really excited to talk to you here about what's happening with our software and its ability to improve not only SQL, but also any other type of Windows performance issues. So with that, just a little bit about who we are. And you may have known us as the Diskkeeper Corporation in the past, but the world's preeminent disk defragmentation software product. But we respun and rebranded ourselves back in 2012, and GQ and his team respun the software because you no longer defrag a SAN or an SSD. And they totally rebranded the product to where we are now actually preventing fragmentation from occurring in the Windows OS. And we're going to talk a lot more about the benefits that implies, especially around SQL Server, and the ease in which you can install and benefit from the product. We've been in business over 39 years, 12th oldest software company in the world. We're a close partner with Microsoft because of what we do with the Windows operating system, which you'll see. Because of what we do to help improve virtualized environments, we're a close partner with VMware. Our software helps improve VDI environments, so whether it's Horizon View or Citrix, and we're a Citrix Ready partner. We're pretty excited about having that certification. And very specifically here today, most importantly, we've certified under the Microsoft SQL Server I/O reliability certification. GQ and his team earned that certification, and GQ, I'm going to ask you to just touch a little bit on that with the folks.
Be glad to, Dan. Microsoft has certain certifications to make sure that third-party products are fully compatible with their products. In this case, Microsoft SQL Server. It not only requires stringent testing, but we also had to face a panel of SQL experts from Microsoft, and we passed with flying colors, Dan. I would like to say we're the only software vendor to achieve this certification, but we're in good company with people like Dell and HP, hardware vendors that have the same certification. So it's a nice accolade and shows how well we work with SQL Server, Dan.
Well, again, kudos to you and your team, GQ, and also, folks, the testing was done actually in Azure, and everything we're going to be talking about today is not only relevant in an on-premise solution, but if you have access to your VMs in the cloud, no matter what cloud provider it may be, so infrastructure as a service, we can potentially significantly improve performance, but also potentially dramatically lower your cost because of what we do around I/O elimination, et cetera. And finally, I did want to mention that because of what we do around I/O transformation, application performance improvement, Gartner named us a cool vendor and said we should be installed in every virtualized initiative. So if you like Gartner, those little kudos are not easy to come by. You know, we do a lot of polling of our customers and prospects today. And interestingly enough, also, that 7 out of our 10 new customers buy us initially to help improve SQL performance. Once they install us and see the benefits they get in their SQL environment and understand what it is we can do in the other Windows environments that they have running, they then continue to deploy our software across their entire environment. And as you can see here with this word map, again, in all of these many years of polling and interviewing our customers, the main application that comes up as problematic, as you can see there, are those 3 little letters, SQL. And actually, most recently, when we asked about problems on intense I/O applications, over 25%, 28% actually said that they have significant problems with their SQL environment. So 1 out of 4 that we polled, over 1,000 folks. So that's pretty significant. And I think you're going to be happy to see how you can improve performance with a software-only solution. Just wanted to wet your whistle a little bit here with some figures about what we can achieve both before and after installation. And this is the result of running an iometer test in an environment, both with Dymaxio and Velocity disabled and with them enabled. And as you can see here, there's a dramatic improvement in IOPS, over a 90% improvement, and there's a 60% more workload was processed during that testing period. So I just wanted, again, just kind of give you a little snapshot as to what kind of performance improvements, throughput improvements folks are seeing once they install our software. But let's get into what the real inherent problems are in a virtualized environment, and then also how they affect SQL. So what I'm depicting here is the most efficient I/O environment possible. Large contiguous writes emanating out of the Windows OS across the various VMs that are hosted on this hypervisor, moving down to storage and back again. Again, most efficient I/O environment possible. But as soon as you virtualize, these 2 inefficiencies enter into the fray, and they affect Windows environments and SQL especially. It's the Windows I/O tax and the I/O blender effect. And GQ, you want to chat a little bit about those?
Sure, Dan. And you know, the first one is this Windows I/O tax, and it happens not only on virtual machines, but it happens on physical machines too. And because it happens within Windows, whenever a file gets created or extended, the Windows file system doesn't know how big that's going to be. So on that logical side on Windows, where it's trying to allocate space to fill that creation or extension, it just gets the next one. Well, that next one may not be big enough. So then it has to find another one, and so on and so on. So let's say you're trying to write out a 100 gigabyte file. Well, rather than, you know, a nice sequential IO to do it all in one, it may take 20, 30 IOs to do that. And that just costs a lot of extra processing and bandwidth too. And then secondly, you see this thing called the IO blender effect. And what happens is when you have all these VMs all coming down, now they get all mixed up, and now you have to process them all little by little, back and forth, and that is costly too. And not only is this not only costly in terms of all the extra processing it has to do, you're also not taking advantage of your storage. If you ever look at benchmarks on storage, and they usually give it to you for both hard disk drives and solid disk drives, they give you 2 types, random IOs and sequential IOs. And you notice that random IOs always perform worse than the sequential IOs. So if you're getting all these small random IOs, you're not taking advantage of your storage, Dan.
No, thanks, GQ. So folks, think of your SQL IO intensive applications that you're running. So in this case, for example, it might take 100,000 IOs to write a gigabyte of data. But if you have our software installed with the IO transformation in place, and we'll talk about how we do that, it may only take 50 or 60,000 IOs. So think about it this way, we take half the cars off the highway at rush hour, we pack the remaining cars full of people, and we put them in an HOV lane that really works. And again, it doesn't matter what type of storage you have here in the back end. We have customers running hyper-converged, all flash, extreme IO, pure storage, nimble, Nutanix, et cetera, et cetera. If we can reduce the amount of IO, the storage just works that much faster. Your applications run much faster. If it's having to deal with all this small, tiny, random, unnecessary IO, they just bogs it down. And by the way, Flash doesn't like random IO. And our best practice also is to install across all the VMs on a particular host. Because as depicted here, as you can see on the left, we're installed on that one VM, and we're optimizing IO that one VM is emanating from. However, you can see, though, that the other VMs where we're not installed are still generating that small, tiny, unnecessary random IO that Windows creates all day long, all month long, all year long, hitting the hypervisor, getting further randomized to what is called that IO blender effect, and it really degrades performance of that one VM that has the optimized IO. So again, our best practice, install across all the VMs, you get the most efficient IO environment possible, your fast storage will be able to run as fast as it possibly can, and you get benefits both from end users and from your application performance. Number two, as GQ mentioned earlier, if you've got any questions, please put them in the question box. As he said, no question's a bad one, and we'd certainly be happy to answer all of those. So where is it we install? So we're the orange stripe, as you can see. We install in the guest OS, in the VM. So we're above everything in your environment. And coaching Windows, we don't do the work. We're like a personal trainer to Windows, coaching it not to break up those writes into small, tiny fragments. And as GQ will talk about, we also have a patented read caching engine that has some artificial intelligence built into it. It learns the application. It identifies those performance-robbing read IOs that are going to degrade performance. And if there's free and available memory on that VM, it's going to put those performance-robbing read IOs into the DRAM that's free and available, creating a tier 0 storage environment on your server. And by the way, memory-to-memory transfer is 10 to 15 times faster than if it had to go down even to all flash and back again. So again, for applications like SQL that are read intensive generally, it can be an incredible boost, not only to the SQL performance, but to your overall throughput and to the IO reduction in your environment. Doesn't matter what hypervisor is installed, HBAs, servers, what storage is involved, we're up in the Windows OS. Again, coaching Windows not to break up those writes into small fragments, keep them large and contiguous. So, what benefits do we get from Dymaxio on SQL Server? Well, there are two. One is write optimization. We've talked about it. You get large contiguous writes. They're going to deliver more payload for every IO. They're going to be contiguous versus tiny and split. They're going to be larger, as we talked about, versus a lot of smaller, tiny, random writes. And they're going to be sequential versus random. And you heard from GQ, storage loves sequential IO. So real benefits on the write side, but a real boost comes now on the read side, because as I mentioned first, if you get optimized writes, you're going to get optimized reads. I spoke briefly about the caching engine. GQ will talk more about it here. But again, it caches those performance robbing read IOs, automatically puts them into DRAM. There's nothing for you to do to get any of these benefits we're talking about. Memory to memory transfer 10 to 15 times faster than all flash. And because we work in the background, we trademarked years ago, actually, the set it and forget it moniker. We beat the Ronco chicken guy to that because the software just works in the background. You won't even see us appear on Task Manager. So GQ and his team built these benefit dashboards, and we'll show you an example that show you what we're doing for your environment around IO reduction, increased throughput, etc. And it goes detailed by VM, and we can look at it on a console, a single pane of glass across all of the VMs that you have us installed. And folks, we have customers having us installed on thousands of VMs in their environment. So with that, GQ, I'd wondered if you'd talk about the two, patented technologies that are in Demaxio, both Intellerite and TeleMemory.
Be glad to, Dan. The first technology I'd like to talk about is our Intellerite patented technology. I indicated that Windows I/O attacks, where the Windows file system tends to break up the I/O because it doesn't know how big a file creation or a extension is going to be. So, as the picture indicates, rather than sending a nice sequential I/O, it has to send 4 I/Os, and that's being nice. Usually it's a lot more than that. What we do here is we are mining your system, and every system's different. And this is all done in the background, and we're determining certain applications, certain file types, when they get created or extended, how big they're going to be. And we just feed that intelligence back to the file system. So now the file system has that intelligence and can find the best allocation and write that data in a nice single sequential I/O. So it's very simple. I know a lot of people think, oh, you must be buffering those small IOs, then writing it out. No, we're not doing that. We're doing something much simpler, but much more effective. And that just is giving intelligence back to the Windows file system so it can do a better job. Thanks, Dan.
Sure. And GQ, if you wouldn't mind then talking about the other patented technology in TeleMemory.
Yes. And, how does caching work? And that is, if you can have your data in the cache and that data is read, and we can satisfy that right at the system, well, you just decrease that IO from having to go down to the network, down to the network storage, and back again to get satisfied, because we can do it right there using the DRAM cache. Now, our technology, caching technology, is much different than most others, and we're very unique. In fact, Dan, 9 out of the 10 top PC OEM manufacturers has licensed our caching technologies. And the reason why we're so unique is 2 things. One is how we use memory. We only will use what available memory you have on the system. You don't have to go and allocate a certain amount and say, use this for caching. We'll look at everyone's system, which is different. What memory do you have available? And we'll use that for caching because it's not being used. Now, if any user or system process needs it, we automatically give it up, so there's never a memory contention issue. That's the first technology. The second part is how we determine what to use for cache, what to cache, and what to keep in cache for the best performance. A lot of caching products, will say this data was just read, so I'll put it in cache and hope that gets read again. We take a little longer term approach, and we're looking at a couple things. One is what data is getting read the most over time, and we'll put that into cache. And then we also know over time certain patterns that give better performance than others. So using both of those pieces of data, we can determine what to put and what to keep in cache for the best performance. And as you said, Dan, you know, DRAM is 10 to 15 times faster than SSD, so you can see the great performance gains you can get here. Not only on that read performance, but we also then increase the bandwidth by decreasing the amount of work going over that network, so other systems use that same bandwidth can take advantage of that. Thanks, Dan.
No, thank you, GQ. Appreciate your discussion on both in TeleMemory and in Intellerite. So, folks, you know, I'd mentioned this. We run in the background, set it and forget it software. But I also talked about the dashboards that GQ and his team put together, and this is just a simple example of one of them. And what it's trying to depict is, again, what is it we're doing for your environment? And this happens to be taken over the last 3 weeks from a system. And over those 3 weeks, we eliminated 9.5 million IOs from taking the trip to storage and back again. Of those 9.5, 7 million were read IOs, and actually 64% of all reads in those last 3 weeks didn't take the trip to storage and back again, were satisfied out of DRAM cache. Again, nothing for you to do to get this IO elimination. And from a write perspective, 2.4 million write IOs were eliminated, which constituted 32% of all the writes during those 3 weeks. Now, when we say eliminated, it's a little bit of a misnomer. We're not eliminating writes, but if you recall, Windows breaks up writes into small, tiny fragments. We coach Windows to keep those writes large and contiguous. So we've eliminated 2.4 million of those small, tiny random writes from being created, and instead coached Windows to make those writes large and contiguous. And from a read IO perspective, we didn't eliminate the reads, but we eliminated them from taking the trip to storage and back again. Served up out of DRAM 10 to 15 times faster than flash. And since every IO takes a certain amount of time, we just do a simple multiplication against the 9.5 million IOs that we've eliminated and your average latency to get what we call the storage IO time saved number. And that is the amount of time that the storage system has been saved from having to process, would have had to process all of these IOs. Since they didn't have to go to storage, we saved 20 minutes and 20 hours, 9 minutes and 59 seconds over those last 3 weeks. And folks, I had a customer yesterday in Georgia. They've got us on 2 hosts that host their SQL servers, just 2 hosts installed at all the VMs. In 30 days, we've saved 4.8 billion IOs from taking the trip to storage and back again in 30 days. Just outstanding. But these are the dashboards that you'll be able to access if you go ahead and take advantage of our free offer at the end, because as you know, for attending today, you're going to have the option of downloading not only our IO assessment tool, but also a 30-day free trial of our Dymaxio software up to 100 VMs for 30 days, which is a $700 value. So we're pretty excited about getting you to that. We also have a single pane of glass. This happens to be a depiction of the velocity management console. So you can get a high-level view across your entire environment about what our software is doing by each VM that we're installed on. So the VMs are down the left. The high-level metrics of what we're going to show on the console are at the top. And we also have a system status here. Obviously, you can see it's green, yellow, or red. And the yellow or red is not about the server performance. If you picked up on it from GQ's discussion, our read caching engine can deliver dramatic benefits to your environment. And since that's so important, that's what we're really highlighting here. And as you can see, the yellow is saying that on this VM, we could do a better job, build a bigger cache, eliminate more IO, but we need a little more memory to work with. And then the red is just saying, hey, we know we can do a better job on this VM, but there's just not enough memory at all for us to begin building our cache. You don't have to, but if you'd like, add more memory to this VM and we can go and do a better job for you. So great high-level view, and then you can drill in like we did here and see what's happening on each specific VM from your environment. Very easy to use. You can use it to install both Velocity and or Demaxio, depending on the console that you're using right from the console. Very simple. We installed 151 VMs at a hospital a little while ago, and it took under 5 minutes to install 151 VMs. And again, something I don't think we've mentioned yet, that we install without a reboot required. And that's been true for the last over two years. So no reboot to require, it takes just minutes to install, and we begin optimizing immediately. Just want to give you some examples of what some customer benefits were realized, and we have hundreds of these on our website. Down here, Bell Mobility, and there's a Verizon of Canada. Look at this. Just by installing our software, they reduced I/O to their SAN by 61%, and they got 3x faster SQL queries. ASL Marketing, again, just installing our software, saw a 15-hour reduction in batch imports. And Creative Office Pavilion, response times improved up to 90%. Now, again, these are customer examples. Everybody's different. Everybody's SQL environment is different. Everybody's SQL application is different, which was why we suggest and why we're offering for you to install our software in your environment at no charge and see what it can do for you. Again, no reboot to install, takes just minutes. Everything's done in the background, not a lot of work for you to do. And you can see the dashboards, and if you have some pre-installation benchmarks, which also is a best practice before you install us, you can just measure against it and see how we're improving that. And by the way, if you're in the cloud, Azure, AWS, Google, etc., and you have access to your VMs, there's a very, very good possibility, because of what we do, that we could allow you to get the same or better performance at a lower cost tier of cloud instance. And again, happy to work with you to prove that. And we have some data around some testing we've done that proves that out. But again, everybody's instance is different. So with that, what can Demaxio do for you? You can read it as well as I can, but I hope you've garnered the ideas that there's clearly the opportunity to improve SQL performance and your other Microsoft applications, but we're focused here on SQL today. Improve throughput, give you faster data transfer rates, and many of our customers have been able to extend actually the use of their hardware over time because of what we do around I/O reduction, improved throughput, etc. So the benefits are many by just installing a simple software program. Now, we talked about two things. One, we have a I/O assessment tool. And some folks say, well, I'm not really sure in my environment where I have some problems. How can you help? So this is a free tool. It's a simple application. It identifies 11 different performance metrics. You just choose the VMs that you'd like the application to monitor, and you just type their IP addresses into a simple dialog box, and you hit start. And the application will start up Monday morning, and you can choose the time, but it should run for 5 days. So we have it automatically starting Monday at 12 midnight and running then for through Friday. And it'll generate a report that you'll be able to see by VM where you've got systems that could benefit most from the use of our patented I/O transformation software. And so happy to have you use the I/O assessment tool, but even more easier and more quickly to ascertain benefits is to put us and install us on SQL. And what are some of the best practices for boosting SQL performance? GQ, you want to chat about these?
Sure, Dan. The first thing is, as many SQL users will know, SQL will try to allocate all your memory and load its databases into the memory. And that's true even though some of those databases or parts of it never even get access. So it's a little waste there. So what we recommend is that you cap SQL, leaving some memory for us to use. And as indicated, at least 8 to 16 gigabytes. And we've had an outside vendor do some testing, and by doing that, and because of our caching, can leverage that extra available memory much better. They saw a 62% increase in transaction rate just because we do a much better job of what to put and keep in cache, get performance. Dan, did you want to say something?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Now, as I said, we will only use memory that you have available. And if there's none available, we won't be able to use any. It won't be able to give you any caching benefits. So also, as Dan indicated, if there's not enough available memory in there, we may not be able to give the extra performance boost that you may get if you would add some more memory to it. So as indicated, put Dymaxio on your system, look at the dashboard, and it'll tell you whether adding more memory on that system can give you better benefits. And over time, we've seen great results in the range of 4 to 16 gigabytes of free memory on your system. So, and the step three, monitor the Dymaxio dashboard, and it will tell you, if you can get some better performance gain by adding more memory. And as we indicated before, you can schedule a time with one of our conducive engineers for a dashboard review analysis on there. Thanks, Dan.
GQ, appreciate that. And so, folks, we talked about the ability to get the free trialware here at the end of the presentation, and now that time's coming up. And Dawn Ridge Creek, our Director of Marketing, is going to be implementing a little poll here to ask you what you would like to do, what kind of software you'd like to get, and then we'll get that to you after the presentation is over. But again, one option is to download the free IO assessment tool, run it for 3 or 5 business days, 5 being the best practice, gives you a full week. And then you can review with us the results and talk about what it is that the IO assessment tool is showing you. Or why not just download the software, no reboot to install, and see what it can do in your environment. Again, it's so easy to install. It takes just minutes. And with some pre-installation benchmarks, which we really recommend you have, you'll know within a week if it's done some things for you. And quite frankly, I had another customer that had some performance issues in Azure, and they installed us, and the next day the performance issues went away. So it didn't even take a week. So we're going to give you up to 100 Dymaxio licenses for 30 days, and or depending on your requirements, we can also take a look at whether Velocity, which Dymaxio includes all the benefits of Velocity. The management console for Dymaxio is still to be released, maybe another week or two. So if folks want to move ahead, we can get them into Velocity with the management console. So Dawn, do we have folks out there participating in the poll?
Hi, Dan. Hi, GQ. Good job. Yes, we do have people filling out the poll question here. So we'll just give them another, a couple seconds before we unleash the Q&A, so we can answer all the questions that have been coming in there. So just give it another second or two here, because we are only going to send you the software if you want it. So please do fill out which you want. You can select multiple items here on this list, and we will send you what you want. So
no charge for any of them, and it's a real opportunity to see how just by installing a piece of software, can we help improve your environment? And by the way, it's a very inexpensive subscription license. So Demaxio is a annual subscription license. Previously, our software was perpetual license with annual maintenance, and you can get a host license which covers all the VMs on a particular host for $950 for the year.
Wow, amazing.
An incredible value, incredible.
All right, Dan, I'm going to close out this poll here and let you get on to the Q&A. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thanks everybody for that. So
And
GQ, sorry?
I was saying we'll get the software out to you as soon as we possibly can after the webinar today.
Thank you, Dawn. So GQ, do we have any questions?
We do, Dan, and I'll start with Robert. He was asking before, would a SQL statement be an example of an IO? Yes and no, Robert. Actually, if a SQL statement, if it pertains to reading or writing to the SQL database, then it would cause an IO. It may cause several IOs, so it can be. And then Nicolay asks, do you provide a trialware version of the software? And you just indicated that, Dan. Yes, we will provide you a trialware of the software.
And if I may add there too, GQ, we really look forward to working with folks that are installing our software for the first time, and more than happy to get on a call with you and just chat about expectations, etc. So don't hesitate to reach out also. I mean, what's important is that you have a good experience and success with the software. Not necessarily anything I or GQ specifically is going to do to make that happen. It's either going to happen or not, but we're just happy to work with you and talk to you about what you hope to achieve.
And then Jorge has a great question. And one of the things I was going to bring up, but I'll read his question. It says, hi, you started this webinar pointing out how we can boost SQL Server performance, but so far, is it right to assume Demaxio will boost any kind of IO, not only SQLs? It says, actually, our servers host multiple VMs. Some are SQL servers, others IIS or Apache web servers. Am I correct to assume that mixed traffic won't matter at all? You are absolutely correct, Jorge.
Great question.
We are, we've been pointing out SQL here, SQL Server, and it's a sweet spot for our product because usually SQL servers are very IO intensive. But any type of servers or any type of applications that are very IO intensive, file server, exchange server, other databases, anything that's IO intensive is a sweet spot for Demaxio to improve performance. So thank you for asking that.
Yep, and also web servers, GQ. We talked about VDI and what we can do in a VDI environment. And remember, again, just what happens to IO and virtualized environments in general. And we're there reducing all of that unnecessary traffic to your backend storage, improving performance and improving throughput. So great question.
And then Rick asks, will this work on physical systems too? Another great question, because we've been talking about virtual machines here, the virtual environment, but the IO attacks, even that blender effect, when you have many physical systems all reading and writing from different LUNs, but all on the same SAN, you get that same effect. So our product works great on physical environments too, because those physical environments have those same IO issues. That's here's a good question I like. How safe is the caching? What happens if the system crashes? Now, our cache is a read-only cache, and that means that the data we have in cache is already on your system drives. So it's already on your on your storage. So if the system, you know, you have a power failure, that's okay, because that data is already on your drive. It's safe. And here's another good question. Does it get installed on the host or the VMs? Our product gets installed on the virtual machines running Windows. And the reason why we're getting installed there is that's where the IOs are getting created at this, you know, right at the that virtual machine. So if we can optimize it right there, for instance, satisfying from cache, we gave you the best performance gains. So we're getting it right where the IOs are originating. Let's see here. Oh, is it required to be installed on all VMs? No, it is not required, but we recommend that you install it on all VMs on the system. You could just install it on the one that is having the, you know, your worst IO performance gains, and you will get gains on there. But as Dan indicated, you know, the other VMs on that host are still causing traffic, cause that, you know, and bandwidth across the network traffic. So by putting it on all of them, you're going to ensure you get the best performance gains there. And let's see here. Oh, Dan, you might, I know you have some experience on this. Someone asked, what about desktop VDI environments? Can it help there?
Yeah, it sure can, GQ. And as I mentioned, if you hadn't seen it, that first chart where we talked about the significant performance improvements was out of our Citrix Ready testing that we had to do in order to become certified under Citrix. And we have also some other results in VMware Horizon View environment. Whether it's persistent or non-persistent, you're going to see benefits. And again, since everybody's different and we can show you many examples, that's why we give you the software at no charge to install and try and set us up in a, you know, a test environment if necessary, if need be, and have some pre-installation benchmarks and see what we can do. Be the best thing for you. And love to work with you on that.
Thanks, Dan. Just a few more questions out here I can see.
Good questions. Great questions, GQ.
I see Marissa asked, how much resources overhead does it use? Very little. There's another technology we use called Invisitasking. And you might say it's runs below running in the background, because we want to make sure that we don't, you know, impact the running of your system while we're giving you performance gains back. So not only do we run at lowest process priority to get data like which data is best to cache or keep in cache, we not only do it beyond the background, we before we run, we'll see what IO activity is there on the system, or how much CPU is being used. And if we see that's being used, we'll back off and let your system, your user and system applications run first. So good question here. Now, I see one other one. You know, it's not quite related to SQL, but it says, can this help backups? And we had helped users decrease their backup windows. And what I meant from that is some of our users have their backup times have gone past their backup windows. They only have so many hours at night to do it. After they put us on, we've decreased that so they can run within their backup window times. And let's see, I just have one more here, Dan. And it talks about, is it difficult to handle hundreds of deployments of the product? No. As Dan indicated, we have a management console, and that management console allows you to manage, deploy, get reports on hundreds of deployments. Very easy. And as Dan indicated, right now, we're in the testing stage of the management console for Dymaxio, but we don't have that out. So if you need something that needs to do large deployments, we will provide you with Velocity and the Velocity Management Console. Let's see. Oh, Dan, just one more, and this is more for you. How is it licensed?
Sure. So again, Dymaxio is licensed on an annual subscription basis. There's a per VM charge. It's a minimum of 3 VMs annual charge. And then there's also the host licenses on an annual subscription basis. And from a per VM standpoint, it's only $600 a year for 3 VMs. So $200 per VM. Or for a host license covering all the VMs on a particular host, $950 per year. So inexpensive to get the power that you saw that you could potentially get today. And we'd love to help you get there.
Well, thank you, Dan. And I think that's it on the questions. A good group here. Thank you. And, you know, if you have any further questions you think about later, please send them in and we'll get those answered for you. Thanks, Dan.
GQ, thank you so much. Really appreciate your participation and all of your descriptions of our technology and answering all those questions. So folks, again, be on the lookout for the software, or the IO assessment tool, whichever you've chosen. We really look forward to working with you, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. That's what we're here for, you know, because your success is our success. So thanks again for taking the time to be with us today. I hope we've answered all of your questions and also given you some good food for thought and some action items here to see how you can improve not only your not only your SQL performance, but also performance across all of your Windows applications, again, whether they're on-premise or in the cloud in infrastructure as a service. Thanks very much. Hope to speak with you soon. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.